Have you ever sat through a sermon and just felt completely captivated? You know, the kind that really gets under your skin? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and deconstruct one. We're going to map out its psychological framework to see exactly how it guides someone from feeling stuck to making a huge, life-altering commitment.
Okay, so every great persuasive argument has a hook, right? For this sermon, this is it. The core idea isn't that you don't have goals or ambition. No, it's that you're running on faulty software. The sermon basically argues that deep down, in your subconscious, there's some old programming that's just overriding your best intentions and putting a ceiling on what you can achieve.
So, what is this faulty programming? Well, the sermon gives it a name: limiting beliefs. Let's dive into how it sets this up as the central problem that needs to be solved.
Now check out this definition. A limiting belief isn't just, a bad thought. It's framed as something way more sneaky. It's an old interpretation of pain that has somehow disguised itself as a hard fact. It's like a hidden bug in your personal operating system, and it's quietly messing up how you see everything.
And to make sure this abstract idea really hits home, the sermon gets super specific. It throws out examples like, I am unlovable, or I can't change. See, these aren't just thoughts. They're presented as core statements about who you are. The whole point here is to get you, the listener, to see yourself in this list and start wondering, wait a minute, which one of these is my program?
So why do we stay stuck in these patterns? The sermon uses this really vivid metaphor: a dog sitting on a nail, just howling in pain. Someone asks the owner why the dog doesn't just move, and the owner says, well, I guess it just doesn't hurt bad enough. The argument is brutal, but simple. Real change only happens when the pain of staying the same is finally worse than the pain of doing something different.
Okay, so we've identified the problem. Now we're moving into the diagnosis phase. The first big symptom the sermon tackles is impurity. But, and this is key, it's defined way more broadly than you might think.
This slide lays out the sermon's logic perfectly. It's all about cause and effect. It argues that your public struggles, the things everyone can see, are a direct result of a private deficit. The core message is that this secret impurity, bitterness, negative thinking, it grows when there's no secret maturity, like a disciplined private life. So, the solution for public failure? You guessed it, private discipline.
All right, so after diagnosing the problem and its symptoms, the sermon shifts into the prescription. This is the how-to part. It lays out a bunch of actionable solutions, all pulled from stories in the Bible, and presents them as a kind of roadmap to overwrite that faulty programming we talked about earlier. The first prescription uses the story of a leper to create a simple 3-step model. Step 1, stop hiding your problem. Step 2, show some humility and admit you need help. And step 3, be willing to actually receive that help. Or, in the story's terms, the touch. It's a clever way to turn an ancient story into a modern step-by-step guide. You got to admit, a line like this, Bible study is hot, your opinion is not, is designed to stick in your head. It's punchy, it's provocative, and it drives home a central piece of the prescription. To reprogram your mind, you have to elevate Scripture above everything else. Your personal feelings, your opinions, they're presented as unreliable. The Bible, on the other hand, is positioned as the absolute truth.
Next up, the sermon contrasts two different stories to basically create a hierarchy of faith. On one level, you have the leper who needed a physical sign, a touch. But then, on a higher level, you have this Roman centurion who just needed to hear the word. And that second kind of faith, the one that works on pure belief without needing proof, is held up as the real goal.
This is a classic reframing technique, and wow, is it psychologically powerful. It takes something terrible, a crisis, a storm, and completely flips its meaning. The storm isn't proof that God has abandoned you. No, it's actually a diagnostic tool. It's a test that reveals what you really believe deep down, exposing that hidden programming. And now we get to the sermon's climax. The stakes are about to get much, much higher. This final story is designed to hammer home one point. This kind of life-changing transformation demands a huge sacrifice. It's not just about thinking differently. It's about being willing to pay a very heavy price. 2,000. That's the number of pigs that were lost in the story used to make this point. So the story goes that Jesus heals these 2 demon-possessed men, and he sends the demons into a herd of pigs. The entire herd, all 2,000 of them, runs off a cliff and drowns. The scale of that financial loss is just staggering, and it's meant to be.
So what did this miracle actually cost the townspeople? The sermon argues it costs them the three things people value most: their money, their comfort, and their sense of control. Think about it. Their whole economy, their stable way of life, it was completely upended by this supernatural event. And their reaction to this is the entire point of the story. So, faced with this incredible miracle, what did the townspeople do? They asked Jesus to leave. And here's the punchline. They were more upset about their lost pigs than they were happy about the two men who were saved. The sermon presents this as a huge warning against choosing worldly security and financial stability over spiritual transformation.
So let's wrap this all up. As you can see, the sermon takes the listener on this complete psychological journey. It starts by identifying an internal problem, that faulty programming, and it finishes by demanding a radical external solution that basically costs you everything. And that brings us to a final, pretty deep question. The sermon starts with a psychological problem inside you, your limiting beliefs, but the solution it demands is external and incredibly costly, sacrificing your comfort, your money, your control. So what does this tell us about the connection between changing your mind and changing your life? It's a powerful framework that suggests for some, true internal change is impossible without paying a radical external price.